Hello and welcome to this LinkedIn live chat. We're delighted to have you join us today. My name is Bamidele Salako, and I'm the Manager of Marketing and Communications at the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, or CCIS as popularly known. CCIS is a non-profit, non-denominational agency committed to making immigration a positive experience for refugees, immigrants, and the community. We offer over 95 programs in 14 locations throughout Calgary and surrounding areas, supporting all aspects of settlement and integration. CCIS offers programs and services in the areas of employment, community and development, resettlement and integration, health and wellness, and families and children. With over 450 staff collectively speaking more than 60 languages, we are the largest immigrant serving agency in the prairies and one of the top five in Canada. This live conversation is an extension of our resettlement services, which supports the seamless integration of refugees into communities across southern Alberta. CCIS's Resettlement and Integration Services Division has welcomed thousands of Afghan refugees to southern Alberta since the toppling of the government in Afghanistan by the Taliban. CCIS has also been at the forefront of the government of Canada's Afghan response, co-chairing the Afghan Refugee Resettlement National Steering Committee. The process of resettlement can be a complex and challenging experience for vulnerable newcomers who, in addition to navigating life in a new and unfamiliar environment, also must overcome the trauma of a difficult past. Today, we are in conversation with Bindu Narula, Director of our Resettlement and Integration Services Division. Bindu has worked with CCIS in various capacities on and off since 1991. She has a master's degree in anthropology from Concordia University, focusing on refugee studies. Bindu was previously an adjudicator at the Immigration and Refugee Board in Calgary from 2009 to 2015, where she decided refugee protection claims. In 2016, Bindu returned to her advocacy role at CCIS. She's been involved with resettling various ethnic communities of refugees over the years, such as Colombian, Sudanese, Iraqi, Syrian, the Yazidi from northern Iraq fleeing ISIS, and most recently, Afghan refugees and Ukrainian evacuees. A live conversation with Bindu will explore the complexity of the Afghan resettlement effort and the excellently coordinated response by CCIS and our partners to support the refugees with settling into their new home and finding renewed hope. Bindu, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Bamidele. Pleasure to be here.
You're most welcome. For the benefit of those who have joined us but are unfamiliar with what CCIS's Resettlement and Integration Services Division is all about, would you kindly provide us with an overview of what RIS, as we call it here at CCIS, does, particularly regarding welcoming and resettling refugees?
Thanks, Bamidele. Resettlement and Integration Services Division at the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society basically starts from when people get off the plane and arrive at the Calgary airport. We meet and greet our government-assisted refugees as well as our privately sponsored refugees and our other newcomers as well at the Calgary International Airport. And that's the beginning of the journey of resettlement and then settlement through our programs. We make sure that they're well equipped at the airport. The government assisted refugees have winter jackets and they're prepared for that harshness of our winters. And from there, that's just the beginning. We focus on making sure that they have a safe place to stay, that there is healthy, culturally appropriate food for them to eat, and then we take care of all their essential documents as well as orient them on how it is to live in Canada. And that's just the beginning of all the services that we provide. We help them to find permanent accommodation, get them into schools, make sure that they're healthy, that they have a doctor to see, and then support them throughout their first years of resettlement in Canada.
Sounds like a lot. That's a good overview of Reese. And now let's focus on recent efforts to resettle, Afghan refugees. Specifically, the 15th of August 2021 was a dark day for many Afghans. The world looked on in shock as the Afghanistan fell to the Taliban. I recall the quite chilling image of a man, Father Mohammed, falling from the sky after he had clung to a U.S. military airplane as it took off from Kabul airport. Thereafter, the government of Canada made the decision to bring in 40,000 Afghan refugees to Canada. And CCIS, together with our partners, has played a central role in that resettlement effort. Kindly walk us through how CCIS has helped to set the tone nationally and locally for this massive resettlement operation, and what were some of the key priorities that we've tried to address to ensure the success of the operation.
Thanks, Bamidele. I think what's been different about this particular, and yes, it was a very sad day and it was very unexpected. The evacuation took place very, very quickly, and then suddenly we didn't know what to do with that many people. So basically, with our partners, IRCC, and our former CEO, Fairburz Burjandian, who are the co-chairs of the National Steering Group. First of all, they created the National Steering Committee for Afghan Resettlement, and on that committee, they divided the country basically into regions. We had BC, Yukon, Prairie, Northwest Territories, the PNT, Ontario, as well as Atlantic. And as you all know, Quebec does their own immigration, so they weren't technically included in that those regions. And then what we did from there is that we met every week. We had it was an amazing sharing of information, sharing of best practices, sharing of kind of planning and what needs to be done. But also before people came to Calgary, we were able to work together to plan and plan and plan some more, to put some very serious protocols in place to make sure that we reduce the risk of having that many people in hotels, and also how to make sure that we provide a welcoming first home for our newly traumatized Afghan arrivals. And so it all started with a lot of communication, a lot of back work, a lot of risk analysis, and kind of putting our minds together and sharing best practices across the country.
Remarkable. Just how many refugees, Afghan refugees now, has CCIS welcomed at the airport?
Since August 2021, we have received over 5,000 Afghan refugees. Some of them have stayed in Calgary, sorry, and others have been moved to other final destinations within Canada. But we received more than 5,000 here in Calgary.
Interesting. That's quite a large number, and must have been a difficult journey for these refugees to have had to take. And obviously, for such a large number, a complex operation. Can you walk us through the logistics of the entire process, such as, what happens from when you receive them at the airport up until when they're able to find permanent housing in Calgary and surrounding areas?
For sure. I think it starts well before people actually arrive to Calgary, because there's all the planning I was talking about has to be done beforehand. We have to make sure that there's a safe place for them to arrive, that there's culturally appropriate food, that there are health services available for them on site, because some people have gaps in their health, and also the trauma. It sometimes exacerbated some health conditions. So we make sure that all their essential needs are met. And then after that, we go into kind of orienting people on how to live in Canada. Basically, people live full lives before they come to Canada, but their lives are very different. They look very different, and so it's just kind of exposing newcomers to what is acceptable in Canada, what isn't acceptable, and how to navigate systems. So we do orientations based on everything from rights and responsibilities, the healthcare system, the education system here in Canada, all the way to simple things like garbage disposal or how to use your appliances or budget and um, shop uh, i- for culturally appropriate food.
Interesting. Um, Moving to a new country is challenging. I mean, I'm talking about people who voluntarily decide to leave their countries and explore opportunities elsewhere. But even more challenging for newcomers who are vulnerable, who had to be evacuated in most cases hurriedly from their home countries due to conflict or war, political instability. Can you tell us about some of the biggest challenges that confront refugees in general and Afghan refugees specifically during their resettlement in Canada?
Yes, Bamidele, nobody chooses to become a refugee. People are forced into that situation, and oftentimes they're not expecting that they would ever have become a refugee. And so part of the issue is that people, for global GARs, basically for global refugees, people outside of Afghanistan situation, and perhaps even the Ukrainian situation, you have people who have been waiting in limbo for some time. They've been in refugee camps or in a host country, kind of waiting some type of durable solution to their predicament. Sometimes they're expecting to go back home. Sometimes they are expecting resettlement, or perhaps they intend to be absorbed into the host society. And so they're living with a different reality and they have time to kind of process that. People who have left their homes by force often have done so in a traumatic way. They've experienced war, violence, they've left their family behind, their language, their land, their livelihoods, and often they're still worried, very much worried about the people that have been left behind, and trying to figure out some ways to bring them here as well. So those are kind of the general challenges that we face with refugees, and refugees are facing themselves in trying to resettle in Canada. With the Afghan situation, it was just a little bit different because the situation came up out of nowhere and people were evacuated within a day to a couple of weeks. They didn't, and they were brought to, many of them were brought very quickly to Canada. They didn't have time, they didn't have time to really process what had happened in their homeland. They didn't have time to process the trauma. They were still very much kind of struggling. And also, what we realized when they got here is that many people were very, very anxious to kind of get their old lives back. They wanted to become contributing members of society again very quickly. They didn't have patience to go through all the orientations and the sessions that we needed. Often they would want to work right away. They were really quite desperate to get their old lives back. And so that was one of the biggest challenges that we faced with the Afghan community. Another challenge we face is basically meeting people's expectations, because sometimes, whether it's global GARs or whether it's Afghan GARs, people have ideas of what Canada is in their minds, and what kind of house they will live in. Hollywood contributes to that as well. And so, and then also the community members tell uh, people about their lives, and sometimes people create images in their mind. Their expectations are quite beyond what we can initially provide for them as a country and when they first arrive. Of course, there's the land of opportunity, and but it does take time to resettle. And so often people are very, very impatient and they want that kind of uh, standard that they left behind immediately. And it takes us time to kind of explain to people that it will take time, it'll come. Work hard, learn the language quickly, and you will definitely have opportunities here that perhaps you didn't have back home, or maybe different kinds of opportunities. But this is the time to start again.
Mm,
And so that was another challenge that we faced with refugees in general, but Afghan refugees as
yeah.
well.
So interesting. So part of the whole process of supporting them with their resettlement is also managing their expectations about life in Canada. If you're just joining us, we've been discussing CCIS's work with refugees, specifically Afghan refugees, and our collaborations with partner organizations across Canada to provide them with a welcoming home. We'll be taking questions towards the end of the conversation. So if you've got questions related to what topic we're discussing today for Bindu or for me, please add them to the comments and we'll be sure to address them. Now, Bindu, I recall at the beginning of this whole resettlement effort for Afghans, CCIS put out a call for donations for the arrivals, and the community response was truly inspiring. In your experience, how important is it for communities to come together to support refugees during their resettlement?
Is the utmost of importance that communities come together. I would say actually it's one of the most important aspects of resettlement. As settlement workers, we can only provide clients with information and direction, support, but really it's about resettlement is about being accepted and being integrated into your communities. And so the fact that we have such a wonderful, amazing community here in Calgary, that we not just support for Afghans, but for Ukrainians, prior to that for Yazidis and Syrians in the last 5, 6 years. Amazing outpour for support for refugee resettlement here in Calgary. And that's not just through donations, it can be through people dedicating their time, wanting to befriend our newly arrived refugees through our Canada Connects program, previously known as the HOST program, where you befriend a newly arrived refugee for a year and really just show them kind of socially, the ropes in Canada, have each other over for tea or coffee or whatever it might be. Amazing program. We also have had people really reach out to say, I would love to work with this community. I am a part of this community, so ethnic communities as well have been contributing. We had the immigrant service providers that have been reaching out and saying, let us know what we can do. We'd like to help with the initiative. And so it's really been amazing welcoming for these Afghan refugees.
Mm. And a big thank you to everyone in the community who has generously supported this effort. It's always inspiring to see the impact that CCIS has on the newcomers that we work with. And I'm sure you've been inundated with several inspiring success stories of Afghan refugees who've successfully, resettled, found jobs, found purpose in Canada. Are you able to share some of these success stories with us?
Yes, for sure. I would like to just mention to you that it takes a village, and so and there's so many people that have arrived, and for the most part, people are doing very, very well. That's generally speaking for the Afghan arrivals. We had some very interesting people that came that led kind of different lives back home um, in in Afghanistan. We had a judo champion that joined um, the clients in the hotel earlier on, and he had moved on to, I believe, Ottawa, but he continued. He wants to join the Canadian judo team, and I believe that he's going to be very successful. We have helped to resettle a group of cyclists that were able to go back to actually, after their arrival here, continue to cycle and be part of a team with the help of community members and cycle teams here in Calgary. They have been able to go, some of them have been able to go back to Switzerland for a competition, and that was an amazing experience for them. And these were a group of female cyclists, so it's even more important given the situation for women in Afghanistan. We've also had the opportunity to, actually, CCIS had the opportunity to hire many of the Afghan refugees, especially earlier on in the resettlement after August, and they have been invaluable to our teams. We were struggling to find interpreters and staff that could speak both Dari and Pashto and any other Afghan languages. And what had happened was, at some point, I just looked around and I said, but we have so many people in front of us who were worked as previous interpreters with NATO forces or at the embassy. Why don't we try to hire them? And so it was an amazing experience for us as well as for the refugees, because they were able to contribute right away back to, and they were spending quite some time in the hotels. And so they were able to get busy right away, and they really felt quite proud of being part of the bigger picture. They also really wanted to be a part of helping their fellow Afghans coming to resettle in Canada, and the perception that the newcomers were getting by seeing their own people that had just previously come a few months before working and contributing and being useful and feeling like they were very much integrated in kind of society, that I think that perception really took that community a long way to say, well, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And so we had many people kind of being up and ready to either volunteer or work for pay out in the community very, very soon. So that was an amazing, I think, amazing opportunity for us, but also for our refugees. And many of those people then later on were able to find employment
Mm.
with some of the other immigrant serving agencies in Calgary as well.
Incredible stories, really, especially for those who have moved from being clients of CCIs to being our colleagues, within the organization. It's always important to reflect and learn from our experiences. And having, been part of this major resettlement effort, can you share with us what we've learned as an agency and how it can benefit the settlement sector as well as the broader community?
For sure. I think we've learned quite a bit. I mean, a project of this size, I think, um, has not kind of happened in quite some time. And of course, it took a different form here. So, with people coming out of evacuation almost immediately, I think that one of the things that we've learned is that you can never plan enough. So
Mm.
the idea is to plan, 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 and then plan some more to make sure that you reduce the risks. You do a very solid risk assessment. You assess basically kind of areas that need to be improved, where you need to put protocols down, where you need to put procedures down, and have it kind of written down. And that's what we've been able to achieve over the last few years. The other thing that's really important is, while you're planning, you also have to be able to pivot. And so that flexibility and to be able to respond immediately to the needs, the up and coming new needs of clients that are coming, because every single family is different and has unique needs. That ability is utmost and most important, because if you're not able to do that, then you very quickly you lose the ability to provide proper standards of client service. So it's really important that when you're dealing with such large groups in hotels, that you make sure that everybody is taken care of, and then also that you remember that the community is larger than the individual, but yet you have to make time to hear and listen up for the individual needs of those clients. The last thing I would say is that, and I just mentioned this previously, is that it takes a village, and that CCIS can't do anything alone. We have amazing government partners, IRCC. We have amazing community partners. We had all of our immigrant serving agencies providing services in the hotels, whether it was the Calgary Immigrant Women's Association doing parenting classes, or whether it was TIES working with our Center for Refugee Resilience to provide mental health supports to our clients who were traumatized and were struggling, or it was Clark who came in and did language assessments for all of our clients on site. We also had CBFY, which is the Calgary Bridge Foundation for Youth, providing um, youth sessions online, because remember, Bamidele, we did this all during COVID,
Yep.
and it was not easy to provide in-person services. And so they provided online supports for literally hundreds of kids for months on end. And so, really, we can't do anything alone. We have our health partners with the Mosaic Refugee Health Clinic, as well as Canada Home Care Group, which provided on site health services for all our refugee newcomers at three or four locations, all the four hotels, as well as our MCRC, our resettlement center in Bridgeland, and the list goes on and on and on. So we really and our government partners as well were able to come on site. For example, Service Canada did SIN clinics on site, and they continue to do so. We had the banks that would come on site to do banking, open up bank accounts. And so really the community pulled together to provide really streamline and to provide services for these clients in their place of accommodation at that time.
Mm. Remarkable lessons. Um, we're gonna cast a spotlight a bit on you here. Your work, the work you do, is truly inspiring. So I've always wondered, and I'm sure a lot of people who know you must wonder, what drew you, what attracted you, what was the attraction to this line of work, and how did it all get started?
Yes, I actually was quite young. I was 18 years old when it was my first real job at CCIS, and I actually started as a volunteer. Many of our clients and many of our staff actually started as volunteers, and then very soon funding comes through, and we're able to provide them with work. And that's exactly what happened with myself. I came to busy myself. I was 18 years old and thinking about university, not university. And the opportunity came about for me to work with, at that time, the um, employment division with a program called the Job Finding Club. And so I was to provide job finding techniques for a group of 10 or 12 people. They were mostly from Central America at that time. And yeah, and then at the end of that, I think it was 6 or 12 weeks, I can't quite remember, we did a job placement for these clients. And so I started as a volunteer, and a few weeks later, at Fairburns, who was the manager of business employment and training at the time, came to me and said, "Oh, we have funding came in, so you can get paid now." So I was very happy to be paid a salary and to stay on. And at the end, I think I had found nine placements for my clients out of 12 people. So I was very, very happy about that. And then through the years, I have come back and gone away and come back. I went back and did my university, both my bachelor's and my um, master's in anthropology. I went away as well to be an adjudicator with the IRB, as you mentioned before, and that was amazing learning experience. But then I really felt like I needed to return back to my advocacy roots because once an advocate, always an advocate. And so I came back to CCIS and started working at the time when the Syrians had just started coming in, and so yeah, it just continued off from there. I've done various positions, and whether I'm here or whether I'm not at CCIS, it's always a part of my heart.
Hmm. And a truly adventurous journey you've had throughout your career. And I'm sure your work comes with its own set of challenges and rewards. Are you able to share with us? Can you share with us what you find to be the most challenging and most satisfying aspects of your work?
Yeah, I think what's been most challenging, especially over the last few years with the Afghan arrivals, is the sheer size, the volume of the clients that have come in. Oftentimes, as well, because we're all learning, our government partners as well as our community partners, we're all learning how to deal with large arrivals. And so, I give you an example. Last March, we usually get arrival notices about 4 to 6 weeks prior that, and then sometimes up to 2 weeks, we'll find out that our refugees will be coming and we'll get the details of their arrivals on those days so that we can arrange to have them met and greeted at the airport. And so last March, we started getting kind of more than our capacity refugees, kind of notice of refugees arriving. And then I thought, okay, we'll just open up a hotel and keep them there until we can, move other people out and get these people moved into our regular base hotel. Well, that did not happen. And within a month, I think we had 1,500 clients and 4 hotels, and it was April and May, very difficult. First time that we had been kind of opening up after COVID, so very difficult to find hotels, very difficult to be able to find staff who could serve in those hotels. So really, that idea of pivoting and being able to react to what happens is sometimes challenging, but I think we did an okay job. One of the things that I also found challenging is because of the sheer volume. I believe that we weren't able to, you know, um, I have very high standards for our resettlement for refugees, and I would have liked to have that for all of these 1,500 clients that have come, but really it's an impossibility. We made sure they were well taken care of and that they were settled, but things took a little longer than we liked, and I think that created some anxiety in people because it's not easy to live in a hotel for 3, 4, 5 months. And so that's, I think, I found challenging when I saw the clients really suffering and really needing to be kind of opening or having their own place where they can cook and their kids can go to school and kind of start their new lives in Calgary. In terms of what's fulfilling, I am humbled and honored every single day. I learn so much from our clients because they teach us in every action that they take how resilient they are and how people sometimes when put in adverse situations are able to really think outside of the box and make things work for themselves. So I think that that is something that fulfills me. It's also really amazing because I've been around long enough to see various people that I've helped resettle after 5 years or 3 years when they get their citizenship. And so when you are invited to a citizenship ceremony and you watch people really have really flourished and beaten that adversity and really drawn on that resiliency to make the best out of their time here in Canada within a short time. It's really humbling to know that I was even even had a little part of that is a great honor and privilege for me. So that's kind of most fulfilling. The other thing I really think that drives me to continue every day is when we see clients, children outside playing in the backyard or in, we have a kind of a jarred off parking lot where kids can play soccer and whatnot at the hotel. And when you see them playing, I realize, that gives me a lot of strength to go forward because that means that the clients, the kids are starting to heal a little bit. That when kids start to play again, when they're not miserable, when they're running around the hallways in the hotel, um, uh, much to the dismay of many clients. But I think for me, it's a sign that people are starting to gain back their normal lives again when I see children play. And so that gives me a lot of strength and hope for the future yeah, and fulfillment.
Awesome. That's a perfect note on which to end the conversation. Bindu, thank you. It's been a very engaging and inspiring conversation with you today. I want to thank everyone who's joined us, for this LinkedIn Live. We hope that you found the discussion valuable and you've gained some insights into the refugee resettlement process, especially as we do it here at CCIS. We want to especially thank the director of our resettlement division, Bindu, for taking the time to talk to us about CCIS's work with Afghan refugees. Thank you once again, Bindu.
Thank you, Bamidele. And I'd also like to thank my team because we have an amazing team in resettlement that works tirelessly and they're super dedicated to the resettlement of refugees. We can't do it alone. It takes a village.
Yeah, absolutely. Riz, colleagues, thank you very much. If you would like to learn about our refugee services, you can visit our website, the CCI's website. My colleague will be sharing the link in the comments. And finally, would like to remind you that CCIS is committed to supporting newcomers in Calgary and surrounding areas through various programs and services. If you're in need of employment assistance or have any questions about the settlement resources available to you in Calgary, please don't hesitate to contact us. And just a note to let you know that we're offering drop-in settlement services at the Calgary Central Library on Mondays and Wednesdays only for now, between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Counselors will be available at the library to address all your questions about life in Calgary. It's the settlement desk on the third floor at the Central Library. To everyone who's joined us live and everyone seeing us later, I would like to thank you. I'd also like to thank my colleagues, Khalid Akim and Mason Ismail, who provided logistical support for this live conversation. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. See you.